Hello, everyone. Today we're going back to our science fair, and I hope you've had a chance to start collecting some of your data. And that's what we're going to look at today. What do we do with this data? How do we show people this data in a way that looks nice? Sure, we could just, let me open up this Excel spreadsheet that we were using. We could just open up the Excel spreadsheet, we could just print it out and show that to them, but it's really not going to show them anything. So, how can we show them data in a way that it looks nice and they're going to understand sort of what we've come up with here? So that's what I'm going to show you. Excel makes this really easy too. Remember that when we did the potatoes, and again, all of this is made up data. It's going to mean nothing when I do it right now because I made it up completely. As a matter of fact, I got tired of thinking of numbers. So down here in the bottom part, the one about that's modeling like the guy that did the video games, down here, I just used a random number formula and I just put in random numbers. So it's going to mean nothing what I do today, but I'm showing you how to do it with yours that will mean something. So remember that when we talked about the potatoes, we looked at the size of the potatoes, but we said it was going to be better to take an average. So for a graph, to make our data look good, I'm going to just hide this part about the size of the potatoes. So I'm going to hold my mouse over the letters and drag both of these columns. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say hide. It's still there, but it looks like it's not there, and it's going to make life easier for us in just a second. The same thing about the weight. We did an average weight, so I'm going to hide the part that just has the weight of the two potatoes. And they're still there, but I just hid it so that I can see better. All right, normally when you compare something in a graph, you want to just compare two things. You want to compare one thing on the bottom and one thing going up the side. And so we might say we want to compare the size of the potato to the voltage. And then the other thing that I'm going to do, because I have two graphs, two sets of data in here, actually what I'm going to do, I'm going to right click where it says sheet 1, copy. I'm going to copy it to the end, create a copy. Okay, so now I have two identical. So on the first one, I'm going to take off this other graph, this other data. All right, now I'm going to click the letter to highlight the whole column that says size so I can compare size to voltage. And I'm going to hold down Control and I'm going to click the letter to highlight the whole column for voltage. The magic of Excel is that when I go to the Insert menu, there are a whole lot of graphs and charts that I could pick, but the magic part is if I go to recommended charts, while I have this highlighted, I go to recommended charts, it's going to tell me this is probably what you want to use. And I happen to know that a scatter plot would be a good way to graph this. So I'm going to just say, okay, magically it pops out this chart for me. Now, the problem is this is not just talking about voltage. What I'm actually talking about, I'm going to highlight here and double click. I'm going to say average size versus, and that's usually the word we use in these charts, voltage for unit. That works good. And the other problem is we don't know what these numbers are going this way and this way. And I can get a good idea because the first number in this column should be 4.8. And the first number going up is way more than 4.8. So it has to be this one because that does look like about 5. So this side is the average size in centimeters. This side is the voltage for the unit, but we want people to know that. So I'm going to go to this plus sign, and this is called Access Titles. I'm going to click the thing that says Turn on Access Titles. And again, now I can double click here, and I can change this title to average size of potato of average size of 2 potatoes in potato unit in centimeters. And we always want to put what we've measured it in. And then I'm going to double click the other axis, and I'm going to say that this one is the voltage for potato unit. Now, remember that mine means nothing because I made up random numbers. But if you'll notice, we do sort of see, somewhat anyway, that as the size of the potatoes gets larger, we do somewhat see that the voltage is also getting larger, and that's what we're wanting to know. What we can do is come down here to trend line, and notice when I mouse over it, it gives you a line, and that shows you that as the average size, I'm just going to click it. That shows you that as the average size goes up, the average size this way is going up, the voltage is also going up. Remember, mine means nothing. The trend line is just the computer saying, yeah, your brain is seeing all these dots, but they really are kind of headed up in that direction. So we could say, as these potatoes get larger, the voltage is going up. So this gives us a good way that we could look at our data and see what it means. Now we could try something else. We could try, remember, I want to hold down control and click, I want to try the average weight. I hold down control and click that column versus the light bulbs. Hold down control and click that column. And back on the insert menu, I'm going to try recommended charts again. And it's going to give me a scatter plot again is a good way to do it. Now you could look at these others. I just happen to know that for what I have here, yes, scatter plot is a good idea. So again, this is not, oops, I didn't mean to move that. So do Control Z anytime something happens you didn't really want. This is not really the number of light bulbs. This is the weight of the average weight of 2 potatoes in potato units versus the number of light bulbs that would light up. But if I click on the chart, I can see the plus sign. I want to add the axis titles back on here. And this time I can just look at the numbers. These numbers go up to 250, so that's got to be my weight because these numbers are not very big. So here, this is the average weight of 2 potatoes in potato unit in grams, is what I pretended it was. And then I'm going to change this axis title to number of light bulbs that would light up. And we can see, to our eyes, maybe this doesn't really change. It kind of overlaps. Let's see what a trend line would do. A trend line is showing it's barely going up a little bit as the weight of the potato gets bigger. Maybe it's going up just a little bit to how many light bulbs it would light up. But remember, my data is fake. I just made it up. So this doesn't really tell us anything. But it just shows you a couple of good ways you can make a chart. Now let's look at the other data. I clicked it the wrong way. I'm going to highlight all of these lines. And I'm going to right click and just delete them off. That way this jumps up to the top. Now, what really matters in this, and we could hide all of these columns. Now, first of all, I'm going to show you, I want to highlight all of these, right click and click unhide because these were already hidden from where I hid some columns before I moved some to this other sheet. I could hide all of these columns to get them out of my way because I'm not really going to use these. I use these columns to come up with these numbers. So I'm going to hide these to get them out of my way. And this shows me there really is only one thing to do a chart with on this particular type of data. Remember, this is modeling the guy that did the video games. Each day he tested his reflexes and he kept playing video games for a certain amount of time every day to see if his reflexes were getting better. And this looks like with my random numbers, it's not going to get better at all. But we're going to graph it just to see. We're going to put it in a chart. But his thing was he tested each day. So he's seeing if things change over time. That's going to give us a different chart. For now, I'm going to highlight this column, hold down Control, highlight this column by clicking the letters at the top. I'm going to go back to the Insert menu, click Recommended Charts, and notice it gives me, it still says scatter up here, but it gives me a different kind of chart because it's giving me a line graph. It's already going to connect the line for me because generally when we're talking about something that changes over time,
We want to see the line of how it changed over time. So again, you could pick some of these others, but usually what it recommends is a good choice for what data you have. Now, sometimes it can't figure out. It's just a computer, and sometimes it can't figure out what data you have. So sometimes you may want to use a different one. But I'm just going to use the one it has there. It magically gives me this line. It looks like, oh, we really had a big increase from day 2 to day 3. But remember, mine's made up data. So, but then it looks like we just kind of played around. We went up, but we came back down. But again, remember, it's made up data. So I'm not doing this to show you if reflexes improve. I'm doing this to show you how to make the charts in Excel, and they look really nice. So in this case, I only have 2 columns to look at, date and average inches, so it should have been average centimeters. And we did change it to centimeters. I think I just didn't change the average. So I'm going to change the title to, I could put date versus average centimeters, but a better way to say that, I'm going to say, I want to say something about catching the ruler. Number of centimeters to catch ruler over time. So instead of saying date versus, I'm going to say over time. So I'm telling you that this is showing us how we could look at whether this has changed over time. I'm going to add in these axis titles. Down here is the date. I'm going to put day, because this is showing me like day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. It's showing me like that. And on this side, I'm going to put average number of centimeters to catch a dropped ruler. So this is showing me that on, okay, the problem here is that it's starting on a 2-0, and I think that's because, well, first of all, we have this line up here. I'm going to delete this line, and that changed it some, but the other problem is because we have headers. I'm going to click in the chart, and I'm going to click this little funnel looking thing. That's going to let me change the data, and under this data, I'm going to click here to let me edit it. And it starts on a 1, but notice I really want it to start on a 5. So I'm going to change that 1 to a 5. And the same thing with the L. I really want it to start on L5. And where I'm getting this number from is right here. Now when I click OK, there we go. That looks much better. And it actually shows the dates at the bottom. As a matter of fact, the dates are so jumbled together that I may want to make them big. But I can also go where I see access titles, and I can click this arrow. And when I click this arrow and click more options, I want to click here, and I can change this to rotate all text 90 degrees. And once, actually, I think I like it better the other way. Instead of rotate at 90 degrees, I think I like it rotated 270 degrees. That just feels more right to read it. Now that I have these, I really don't have to put this day because it's obvious what that is. So I'm going to just delete the day off. I want to put a border around the whole chart itself. And to do that, I'm going to click the outside of the chart, and I'm going to put a solid line border and pick a color. I want to make it a little bit wider just so I can see. I could click the chart. If I click the plus sign and go here for data labels, it would actually put in the data labels, which sometimes might be helpful. That way you're not trying to guess, is this 22.4? Because we are kind of having to guess that. Sometimes there's not enough room and you don't want it there, but sometimes it looks good to have it there. But this is a way to show your data in Excel in a way that looks really nice, and you're going to be able to include it. There are so many different kinds of charts that you could use that I can't go through all of them, but the best thing, like I said, is just to highlight the columns that you want, click recommended charts, and it's probably going to give you one that would work really well. I will see you tomorrow, and we'll talk a little more about how to put all of this together into a project. I hope you've been doing some great data collecting and keep doing that.